Heyo, welcome back to yet another Final Fantasy VII Power Creep Should You Pull video featuring Yuffie and Lucia. So, new weapons and outfits for both Yuffie and Lucia on the Summer banner. Starting off with the Summer Moogle outfit for Yuffie, which looks great in my opinion. It has the Sun's Favor and Flameblade Arcanum. So the Sun's Favor is a new R ability that gives you 5% HP and 15% physical defense. And then of course the Flameblade Arcanum is 35% fire damage. So at first look, the Sun's Favor looks pretty good, but looking at it in more detail, the 5% HP doesn't even account for 5 points of boost HP. It's much lower than that. And the physical defense is basically equivalent to 5 points of boost physical defense. So if you compare that, it might just be better to have, you know, a boost HP or a boost physical defense. But this is 2-in-1 and you can decide whether it is worth it or not. Either way, the Flameblade Arcanum alone makes it pretty worth it. For Lucia, also looks great, her Beach Agent, and she also has the Sun's Favor and Buff Debuff Extension Plus, which is not the actual duration, but the extended duration when you recast it. Yuffie's Stripe Moogle Float looks really cool. Both the animation and the weapon itself is adorable. It has a very high physical attack stat, and it's got the classic boost physical attack and fire potency, with a circle sigil boost and 700% AoE fire damage. And on top of that, if she has 50% or more HP, she gets a fire damage increase from low to high potency. Lucia, she gets the Marine Shooter, which also has a really cool animation and looks pretty solid. It also has a solid physical attack stat. It has boost physical ability potency and fire potency, which is very nice. And it has an attack boost for fire and triangle sigil. And then the actual ability is 560% physical non-elemental damage to all enemies that lowers their physical attack by mid to high potency. And also if she has 50% or more HP, she lowers their fire resistance by mid to high potency. So there are tons of AoE elemental damaging weapons in the game. These 6 here don't even begin to cover all of them. And the Moogle Float pretty much beats out all of them outright. The best ones I could find to compare it with are Red's Canyon Collar and the Egg Staff from the Easter event for Aaaaand. So against Canyon Collar, the physical attack of the Moogle Float has quite a bit more physical attack. The Canyon Collar actually has more total R ability points, so it beats it out there. They both have sigil boosts, and then the command abilities are where they differ. It is 700% versus 500% AoE elemental damage. And then the Moogle Float raises fire damage by low to high with 50% or more HP, and the Canyon Collar lowers magic defense from mid to high. So pretty comparable. And then we look at the Egg Wand, and the primary stat of the Moogle Float is quite a lot higher than it. They both have 85 R ability points. It is a sigil boost versus all cure spells, so I think the sigil boost kind of wins out there. And then for the command ability, it's 700% versus 630% AoE fire damage. And then of course, the one has the fire damage increase and the other one has more damage to a single target. For existing weapon synergies for Yuffie's weapons, there are a few that are pretty good. The 4-point Shuriken is a physical weapon that also gives buff debuff, so your fire damage buff will last a bit longer. Then the best ones are obviously the Arctic Star, which buffs your party's physical attack, making her hit even harder with her allies. It also gives you level 7 boost physical attack. It gives you physical attack and fire damage buffs. And of course the buff extension from the Arctic Star makes those last longer. And then probably the best one is the Boomerang, because again you get max level 7 physical attack boost. You also get a level 7 boost fire potency from just the weapons, that's 85% additional fire damage. And then you get the fire buff from the float and the fire debuff from the Boomerang. In terms of sub-weapon value, pretty standard. 85 ability points and a high physical attack stat makes it a good sub-weapon for physical fire DPS. Lucia's is a little more complicated. There are a few similar weapons that do bits and pieces of what her weapon can do. And yeah, like the Full Metal Staff lowers physical attack AoE by mid to mid only, whereas hers is mid to high plus the fire resistance. And of course the staff does a lot less damage. Same thing with the gold collar for red, AoE magic defense debuff versus AoE, you know, fire resist debuff plus physical attack debuff. And then the glare reed doesn't have any buffs or debuffs, but it does do more AoE damage. So all of these weapons basically put together can more or less form this marine shooter. So a very good weapon. And yeah, these weapons really can't stand up to it right now. Other than that, it was very difficult to find a weapon to actually compare it to directly. And in the end, I chose Kuja's Spirit Blade, which is unfortunately actually a weapon that I do not own, not even a single copy of it, because it is a limited weapon and I didn't manage to get it when it came out. So I don't have all the information for the Spirit Blade, so please bear with me. But you can see the primary stat of the Marine Shooter is much higher than the primary stat of the Blade. R85 total ability points versus unknown. Sadly, I don't have the information for that. I know it's magic attack and ability potency, and these are pretty level 120 weapon uncapped. So the boost magic attack 40 points is probably like 46 or more. And the ability potency, I have no idea. So if you do know, let me know in the comments below. Sadly, I can't compare those. But as for the support materia, they both have sigil boosts, but the Marine Shooter has an attack boost for fire, making it a bit better in my opinion. And then finally, command abilities. The Marine Shooter does 20% more damage. They're both lower AoE physical attack debuffs, should I say. And they're both mid to high. And then Sephiroth's lowers magic attack from mid to high AoE, whereas Lucia's lowers fire resistance from high to high when it's OB6. So even better than a limited weapon, and that is the perfect example of why these are power crept weapons. Her synergies are not as good as Yuffie's existing synergies, unfortunately, but there are some worth mentioning. So Black Rifle has boost crit potency and it's a physical weapon, and because the Marine Shooter is physical non-elemental, it can actually take advantage of the crit potency. And then you have Rose Musket, which is kind of synergistic and also kind of not, because one's physical and one is magical. But you do get level 7 boost fire potency having those two weapons together, and you get to debuff physical attack, fire resistance, and magic defense. So it has a lot of hybrid potential. Let's say you only have Cloud as your physical fire DPS and you want to go for a full physical or a full fire team. You could bring Cloud for physical, and you could bring Aerith, for example, for magical. And this weapon can basically, this combination can sort of support both of them. Other than that, the Mad Minute is probably the best synergistic weapon because it gives you level 7 boost physical ability potency, which is max 80% when your attack stance is maxed out. You also get debuffs for physical attack, magic attack, and fire resistance, so you can really weaken the enemy's damage and still do more damage to them. And then of course it has physical synergy because it's a physical weapon, it's got a decent physical attack stat, which will combo nicely with the Marine Shooter. So those are the weapon synergies. As for sub-weapon value of this, it is a bit higher than Yuffie's weapon. They both are 85 and they both have good physical attack stats, but this weapon has boost physical ability potency with fire potency. So it's a great sub-weapon for physical fire DPS because, as you may know, when you're building out a fire DPS, you usually are able to max out your boost physical attack pretty easily. For example, Sky Splitter and maybe Sephiroth's, I forget the name, but the debuffing weapon. And that's pretty easy to max out physical attack, so having boost physical ability potency makes it much better for a sub-weapon. Overall, Yuffie's weapon is a very good weapon. It is actually the second best physical attack stat in the game right now after the Glavenus sword. It also has a sigil boost for Yuffie, which is pretty rare. She doesn't have many sigil boosts, so that's worth mentioning. It has the highest percentage elemental AoE damage, so it is a hard-hitting AoE elemental weapon. It's got the standard R85 ability points. It has a slow fire buff, so it starts off at low potency and caps out at high. So it is slow, but still pretty good considering the damage that it already does. Finally, it does combo well with the other weapon in this banner, the Marine Shooter, so that is something to consider if you're going hard on this banner. Both weapons will work well together. A couple of reasons to pull is if you don't have a strong physical fire DPS, basically Cloud with Sky Splitter, or you don't have AoE fire damage like Aerith, Ketchi, Barret, Sephiroth, any of their AoE weapons at a high level. And then if you don't have a strong physical fire DPS, I already mentioned that, excuse me for the typo or the double slide. If you have a high overboosted boomerang, then this will combo really nicely with that. And then AoE enemies and bosses are going to be more prevalent in the future. I'm pretty sure of that. The way everything's going, you can see a trend. And of course, another reason is if you just want a new power crept weapon. For Lucia's weapon, it is also a very good weapon. It is in the 4th best physical attack category. And as mentioned, a very nice sub-weapon for physical fire DPS. It's got the standard 85 R ability points and double AoE debuffs, which is very nice. A couple of reasons is if you want an AoE physical attack debuffing weapon that's actually good, unlike Full Metal Staff, Iron Blade, etc. Or if you don't actually have a fire resistance debuffing weapon like Boomerang or Ketchi's Gold Megaphone. Another reason is if you plan to pull on Yuffie's Stripe Moogle Float or like to go kind of hard on this banner, then those two, you might as well pull for this weapon as well to make use of the AoE fire debuff. And then it'll likely be useful in future battles as mentioned. So my final thoughts are that the Moogle Float is a very nice weapon. It's not a must pull because we're likely to get, similar weapons like this in the future, more and more power creep. But this does turn Yuffie into a self-sufficient premier physical fire DPS with her Boomerang and/or her Arctic Star. It is also invaluable in AoE fights, like if you think of the triple soldiers we fought a bunch, and they're actually weak to fire, so that is going to be amazing for that. And things like the Easter event, the summer event, and even the Halloween event where enemies keep summoning more adds to fight with them, and in the future things are probably going to go like that with a lot more AoE focus. And if you're going for it, you should probably get the outfit too. It's definitely the next level of power creep, so pull if you can. Finally, for Lucia's weapon, it is a great debuffing weapon, but also not a must pull. It obviously has significantly more value if you have a high overboosted Egg Wand or Stripe Moogle Float, like a strong AoE fire weapon. And then it has a great combo with the Mad Minute for max physical ability potency and triple debuffs to AoE in one single target. Finally, I've mentioned it a few times, it is a nice sub-weapon for physical fire DPS, so it'll be pretty future-proof with that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Best of luck on your pulls if you haven't already done so, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya!